said that if you spend all your time thinking about them, they may even drive you mad in the end.
Buddhism teaches people to see the impermanence of life, that living beings exist day by day.
In the Oriental philosophy, the word world means the whole physical body.
Now that I've taught thousands of people to meditate, whenever one of my students sees a crystal ball, I know by the look on their faces too.
Sawadee-ka. Welcome to Meditation for All. I am Sananporn Dotjan and I will be guiding you through the program. We will now join Venerable Nicholas Thanisaro in a Buddhist concept class for the Dhammadayada trainees. He will be explaining about the connection between human beings and their environment from the point of view of Buddhism and the importance of the quality of mind.
My brief during your course is to introduce the subject of Buddhist concepts. And the reason for this course is that although many of you are quite familiar with Buddhism or are inspired by Buddhism enough to want to come and try out being a monk at least for a month, but there are certain concepts which are very important to an understanding of Buddhism. If you don't already have the foundation of those concepts, then it will help you to understand the details of other things which you meet during the course. There are many things which we'll meet on the course. Things like the law of karma is very important. Also, what meets the eye. But what I try to do is introduce these subjects in a very a structured way, so that you can put together the other things which you meet in the course, whether it's from the Buddhist culture or from the Dream Kindergarten programs which you'll see. In fact, most of the things on this course go beyond merely just the meditation or the practice. The reason we talk about concepts is because there are some things which in Buddhism where we make connections which normally are not made in science or even in other spiritual traditions. And a lot of these connections go beyond what we can see with the naked eye. A lot of the connections are not possible to understand merely by rational analysis. And in fact, even the Lord Buddha himself said that certain questions, even if you spend all day thinking about them, rationally, you could never come to a useful conclusion about them. He said that if you spend all your time thinking about them, they may even drive you mad in the end, because there's no way to come to a good conclusion just by thinking about certain questions. And he said that there are 4 major areas which are particularly difficult to get a good conclusion about merely by thinking about them. The first of these is to know about the nature or the powers of the Lord Buddha himself. To understand what it means to be the Buddha and the sort of potential which the Lord Buddha has is not possible just by rational thought. A second question, which is not possible to come to a conclusion about, is the outcomes of the law of karma. So if you know about the connections between the actions which we do in the present time and the things which will come back to us in the future, it's not possible merely by rationally extrapolating to come to good conclusions about it. A third thing is about the nature of reality. It's not possible just by thinking about it, by philosophizing, to come to a good conclusion. And last but not least, there are questions about the universe, the beginning of the universe, the end of the universe, where the universe came from in the first place, and so on, which even if you spend a long time thinking about it, you never will get a good conclusion. And more than that, you may waste so much time thinking about it that it puts you off doing the proper thing with your practice as well. But in spite of knowing that these 4 subjects are taboos, in fact, a lot of what we will talk about on the Buddhist Concepts course is actually concerning these subjects. Some people say that to learn about things in theory is not the ideal way to do it, because sometimes you can jump to conclusions. Sometimes if I tell you about something, maybe it will affect you so that you will assume that that's going to be what's happening, instead of coming to your own conclusions. But if you think about it, what I'm going to lay out before you is something rather like a roadmap. And it's like a spiritual roadmap of something which you will be able to find out by yourself as your own spiritual experience advances further. You might say that a roadmap is jumping to conclusions. It's not the real thing, and therefore you shouldn't talk about it. But if you imagine yourself as a traveler, maybe on a mountain road where there is a lot of fog and you cannot see the way ahead, then of course it's useful to have a map. A map at least will guide you in the right direction so that you can follow the road instead of falling down the cliffs. And if you can follow the map, then one day in the future, when the fog lifts, when you come out of the clouds, then you will be able to see the reality of the spiritual journey ahead without having to use the map anymore. But the reason for this spiritual map, and really the objectives of my part of the course, is that you have some idea of what you're looking for, so that you can piece together bits of knowledge which you get from other parts of the course in a systematic way, in order that you don't spend your time looking for spiritual knowledge in the wrong places, and also so that you maybe whet your appetite to look for these sort of experiences and these sorts of knowledge by your own experience. And what I'd like to do in this first session today is to talk a little bit about what sort of concepts are particularly Buddhist, and maybe to compare them a little bit with some of the other concepts which you may have learned about in connection with other religions or other philosophical views of the world. Every spiritual system has its own metaphysics, has its own higher knowledge, which helps to give people a view not only of their own spiritual beliefs, but also about their view of reality as well. And for Buddhism, some of the views concerning reality are similar to those of other religions. Some are rather different. And maybe if you haven't studied about other religious beliefs, then you may think that Buddhism is a religion which is very liberal, in which anything goes, and maybe you even would go so far as to think that Buddhism doesn't really have any particular standpoint on ethical issues. Is that true? Do you think Buddhism has a standpoint? Or do you think that Buddhism would go along with anyone or anything which any spiritual person from any religion might say? Because here in Thailand, often it's the case that people say, well, all religions teach you to be good people, so it must mean that all religions are more or less the same. But I think you find out that the meaning of good in different religions can mean completely different things in some cases. In Buddhism, we say that questioning is useful up to a certain point, and especially for these 4 areas which I just talked about, things like the beginning of the universe, or the powers of the Buddha, or the way in which karma works, sometimes there is a limit to how much we can learn just by questioning things. Sometimes we have to allow things to settle in our mind without questions before we can really understand them more deeply. In Buddhism we say that basically we are good, but there may be bad things, especially what we call impurities in our mind, which cover up that goodness. And what we're trying to do through our cultivation of Buddhist practice is to uncover the good aspect of ourselves again, rediscover it. Normally, humanists would reject that we have anything more than our physical makeup, because they say that when we die, then that's the end of the story. But if it's Buddhism, we talk about the separation of body and mind. And we work a lot with our mind, and we believe that the mind goes on even after the body dies. In monotheistic religions, they would talk more in terms of body and soul. So hopefully you're starting to get a picture of what the actual boundaries of outlook on the world are that we are talking about in Buddhism. So Buddhism is not the same as humanism, although in some places it might not be very clear about that. There are certain things which we do talk about accepting on faith. But when we talk about faith in Buddhism, it's not quite the same as the faith of the monotheistic religions. Because when we talk about faith, we're not talking about blind faith, but we are talking about a sort of confidence which is based upon an understanding which we've built up about the world. So the idea is not to believe things without any explanation, but gradually to work on our understanding, and as we understand things more, then we may be able to accept things more without having to have everything explained to us, or without having to be skeptical about absolutely everything. Because certainly there are some very skeptical people in the world, and such skeptical people are quite hard to please. For example, if a person's never been to Japan before, they might not believe that Japan actually exists. They may think the pictures of Japan which they see on the television are all some sort of conspiracy by the television channel to make you believe in a country which doesn't exist. Because really you could make up a whole lot of pictures about a country which doesn't exist and fool people all over the world. So if such a skeptical person were to believe that Japan existed, they would need certain proofs. For example, the way to get irrevocable proof that Japan exists would be to, firstly, to have some sort of vehicle, like a ship or an aeroplane, which could take you there. Secondly, you would need enough money in your pocket to pay for the ticket to get on that boat or on that aeroplane. Thirdly, you need to know where you're going. And then fourthly, you would need to have the vision or have the navigational abilities to actually find your way there. So even to prove something as simple as the existence of a physical country, there are certain conditions involved with finding proof. It's not that you can just say, well, it exists and expect everyone to believe it. If you want to find proof, you can find it. And within Buddhism too, although we talk about some things which go beyond what we can see with our naked eye, it's not to say that there's not proof for the things which we talk about. Supposing you wanted to find out whether there's really life after death. Well, there are ways of finding out. But just as with Japan, you need to have certain conditions attached to finding the proof for it. Firstly, you need some sort of vehicle to take you there. Secondly, you need enough mental power or prowess or positivity to actually power you enough to get there. Thirdly, you need to know the way to get there too. And fourthly, you need to have enough brightness or vision to be able to navigate your way there too. But in terms of finding out things on the inner journey, then your vehicle would no longer be a boat or a ship, but it would be rather more like a very stable, still mind, which can be a platform which is strong enough for you to examine things which go beyond what can be seen with the naked eye.
During the rain retreat, candles are lit in temples where monks come and do their prayers. The same candles remind the Buddhist people that the time to ignite their inner light will soon arrive. In this episode of Buddhist Culture, you will learn more about these candles of heaven called Tien Pansa.
The teachings of Lord Buddha enlighten the world. They show the true nature of the world, a profound and precise truth, the absolute truth from which none of us can flee. His sacred words bring understanding to all beings, easing the suffering in their lives. Lighting a candle reminds us of his teachings, words that lift our lives to heights where we can touch the light of eternity. Scholars call Buddhism, or the teachings of Lord Buddha, the light of Asia. Due to his words, Asian people can render their word replete with smiling faces. Their expansive love and generosity arise from concepts of giving, kindness, and compassion. And even buffeted by waves of imperialism, technology, and modernization, Asia retains its happiness and remains an impressive place to experience. Buddhism teaches people to see the world like an elder who understands the cyclic nature of existence. Buddhism teaches people to see the impermanence of life, that living beings exist day by day. And every day, with the sweetness or bitterness that accompanies every breath, life grows shorter regardless of wealth or fame, irrespective of beauty or unpleasantness. Even in a world of technological prowess, many questions remain unanswered. People deserve real happiness, but they cannot discern its hiding place and the things that conceal and obscure the path to happiness. Even as their lives end, they still cannot find the way. The Lord Buddha said, "Be simple but contented." Real happiness resides inside us and begins when we stop the wandering mind. This is the starting point of true contentment. Let us cut and polish the mind into a flawless diamond. The inner light will refine the external factors. Then, step by step, life will be in tune from inside out. In Buddhism, meditation has a place in everyday life. It is the start and conclusion of our activities. It applies to any daily task, to all lifestyles. Meditation makes life balanced. Meditation helps us find an emotional counterweight to need and suffering. From inside out, Buddhists are led to the middle path, to stay with the inner stillness where the mind can find its natural resting place. There, happiness becomes possible, reasonable, and more deep-rooted. Life is fascinating, and happiness arises through peace and contentment of a still mind. During the 3 months of Buddhist Lent, Buddhists will pay their respects through the light of a special candle called Tien Pan Sa. The lit candle confirms that the teachings of the Lord Buddha provide light to brighten up their everyday lives. The Lord Buddha's words illuminate the path to a happy life. The teachings are the light that brightens their vision while making their missions easier. The flame of the candle is not only to remind people of the teachings of Lord Buddha, the ultimate truth. The candlelight also demonstrates their gratitude to the Blessed One, who turned the wheel of true happiness and made the pursuit of the truth possible. Life becomes more precious with the inner light present, and the inner light helps us pursue our lives with love, kindness, and generosity so that we avoid becoming the playthings of fate. The Tianpan-sa flame thoroughly shines the Buddhist's grateful light. It is believed that the light ascends all the way to Nirvana, the supreme place of the Lord Buddha, and those showing their gratitude will be blessed by him. Gratitude is not only for the Blessed One, it is also for the monks who make Buddhism the living truth.
A Sattya is a person worthy of reverence, equipped with an abundance of compassion, and is one who delights in happiness and peace. Close your eyes and meditate along with Venerable Somsak Piya Silo and transform yourself into a living Sattya.
Welcome to the moment of peace. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the meditation time for all of us. Everyone has the right to enter the supreme wisdom called enlightenment, or the state of being fully awakened. One, to get there, should take a trip into one's own world. In the Oriental philosophy, the word world means the whole physical body. So this is to take a trip into the body. The trip is not longer than the distance from the wrist to the elbow of the owner, starting from the throat downward, but inward into the area of the abdomen. Such trip is possible by means of meditation, which we will soon start meditation together. If we are ready, just find the best corner. You can sit on the floor as usual if you can, or you sit on the chair with or without the support of any pillows. The only thing is just make sure the back is kept straight to prevent you from being sleepy, being asleep, and also the physical body to get hurt later. Now if you are ready, we shall try learn meditation together to the place, the origin of the place of the supreme wisdom. Now we start meditation. We simply close the eyes. We simply close the eyes. We shall not squeeze the eyelids too tight. Just allow them almost fully closed. Relaxation is the fundamental of meditation. We shall spend some time to relax the physical body. The deep breath is always a good help. We take deep breaths to bring in the freshness of the air. And on the way out, we release all the discomfort that remains inside. Relax deeper in and release on the way out. Relax as if we enter the stream of relaxation. Like the flow of relaxation is taking over the entire physical body. Then all parts become relaxed. We feel more and more relaxed all over by such flow of relaxation. Allow the moment of relaxation to be all the present moment. We forget about the past and we don't forecast about the future. We stay with the enjoyable, relaxing moment of the present time. Then we start taking a trip into the center of the body. The method is so natural. We just take deep breaths, feel the passage. We follow the passage of the inhale, deeper, passing the lungs, deeper down to the center of the abdomen. Now repeat this a few more times. Feel the breath that goes into the abdomen and relax as usual. Relax all the time. Relax as we breathe deep. Follow the breath until it reaches its far end. The final end of the breath is termed the turning point of the breath. This is where the breath ends and turns to be the exhale. This is the point where the mind will come and rest forever. Allow the mind to get parked from its journey along the passage of it stays at the turning point of the breath, which is the station of peace. Let the mind enjoy the stillness. It stays inside. Enjoy the stillness and the peacefulness that emerges from the center. We could confirm the existence of the mind upon the peace station by taking a deep breath. Let's do such confirmation together. Feel the peaceful mind residing at the center of the body, the area of the turning point, which creates the peacefulness for the mind to enjoy. Just allow each moment of peace to come by, and we remain in it, in the peace from the stillness of the mind. As the mind relaxes at the station of peace, the mind becomes lighter. The body becomes also lighter. The whole physical body can blend well with the air, as if the air could come through the whole physical parts. It's like we have become a little more and more transparent. We could relax even more and more as we become more and more transparent. Yet the mind enjoys its stillness inside the middle of the abdomen. Feel the center as the mind stays for longer time. The center is the origin of life. This is where the seed of wisdom is waiting for the owner of the body to come to visit, to greet and discover. By meditation, we can become awakened by greeting the seat of wisdom, the doorway to enlightenment at the peace station. If the owner of the body comes in very often, the doorway will open and show all the fruits of enlightenment to the practitioner. Now let's confirm the existence of the doorway again. We take a few deep breaths in order to do so. Feel the mind firm at the center of the body. Feel the mind still at the doorway of enlightenment. Only the one who practices will be entering the world of supreme knowledge. Enjoy the mind right at the entrance of the supreme knowledge. Before we open up from the meditation session, it is always a good idea to confirm the existence of such entrance again. Draw a deep breath until it reaches its turning point, and we get confirmed that the mind is still there, and the seat of supreme wisdom is waiting for us always. Just we visit the entrance so often, and the door will open and nourishes us with the noble knowledge or the truth of life. Before we open the eyes, just make sure that the mind is still focusing in the area of the center of the body. Even when we open up, the mind is still in touch with the station of peace. So now we can count down from 9 to 0, and we open up with the mind so peaceful, much more peaceful than the moment before we meditate. Ladies and gentlemen, if we are ready, stay focused inside. Take a deep breath and slowly open up. Let's feel peace inside that will get carried forward, maybe for an hour or so, if we could maintain the calmness of our activities. So let's enjoy more meditation next time. Remember to meditate yourself during we are away. Have a good time with your own peaceful meditation at home. Until we meet again. สวัสดี
Next, you will meet Mr. Robert Mawson, an Englishman living in the USA who has become Luang Por's voice in the West, teaching meditation to people from all over the world.
And for you, Sawadee Krap. Good morning. I want to tell you a little bit about my background and my medical background and what brought me to Wat Phat Thamaggai. 20 years ago, my twin sons were born in New York. I'm an Englishman, my wife is an American. She had spent 10 years in Thailand working for the United Nations before I met her. And my English company sent me to America, and I met her at the United Nations. So we got together, and 20 years ago our twins were born, and my wife brought a Thai lady to live with us to help us look after the children because we both were working in the professional world in New York. And that Thai woman, Suni, used to go to a temple near my home that was affiliated with Wat Phat Thamaggai. Wat Phat Thamaggai is something you know about. And I met one of the monks there who asked me if I'd like to meditate, and I said I would, I'd like to learn. And he said, I'll only teach you if you will come 5 nights in a row. And the first night I went there and sat on the floor, and I could only sit in a half lotus position for 5 minutes. Then my legs hurt. And the second night for 10 minutes, the third night for 15 minutes, and the fourth night for 20 minutes. On the fourth night, that monk told me, someday you will sit for hours and you will think it's only 10 minutes. And to be honest with you, I said to myself, well, I'm coming back tomorrow to keep my promise, then you'll never see me again. This is too painful. On the 5th night, however, after we'd meditated, Luang Pi said to me, open your eyes. Do not look at your watch. How long have you been here now? And I said, I've been here about 5 or 10 minutes. And he said, now look at your watch. I'd been there 2.5 hours. So the time went very, very quickly. And I saw a crystal ball. That was the first time I saw one. And he knew that by the look on my face. Now that I've taught thousands of people to meditate, whenever one of my students sees a crystal ball or an inner body, then I know by the look on their faces too. I know who has and who has not. And what I do is I never tell them about any phenomena inside the crystal ball. I just talk about the crystal ball. And then the ones who have seen phenomena, I separate them and get them to draw what they've seen. And of course they all draw exactly the same, which really surprises them. I was born with a heart defect, 2 leaking heart valves. And after 12 years service in the British Army, those heart valves were discovered and I was discharged medically. And I was devastated. And more than 30 years ago, I was living in Denmark, and I had to have a double heart valve replacement. And I got these 2 huge metal valves put in my heart. And I had a life expectancy, if I led a sedentary life, of approximately 5 years. So I went and climbed mountains in Iran. I tramped the jungles of Thailand, Cambodia, and Laos. I lived with Eskimos in Greenland. I tramped the deserts of Iraq and Syria. And I lived and worked in 23 different countries around the world and probably visited another 14. I did not lead a sedentary life. I did die, however. In fact, I clinically died 6 times and was revived with defibrillation, once by the same nurse in the same hospital on 2 different occasions. And her comment was, "Mr. Mawson, please don't come back to this hospital when I'm on duty. You scare me to death." I've been very fortunate because I have been revived. And even the doctors say to me, "I don't know anyone who's had 6 sudden cardiac arrests. Most people don't survive 1. You must have something to do." Luang Por has asked me to be his voice in the West. I have lots to do. I can't die. I'm too busy. And when you're busy doing something you love, then you have a zest. You have an energy for living. And many people half my age can't even keep up with me. They don't have the stamina. They don't have the energy that I have. And I have done many different forms of meditation. But this is university. This is university level. I have taught here at this temple meditation masters from around the world. Men who came here and said, "I am a master. I am a teacher. I teach. I'm a TM master. What can you teach me?" My answer to that question always is, what would you like to learn? Because they came with inflated ego. But when you ask them that question, they stumble. And they ask the question again, "What can you teach me?" And the reply is still the same. What is it you would like to learn? I know some of you are probably in pain, sitting, meditating, your knees hurt, or your back hurts, or somewhere in your body is uncomfortable. I would like to suggest to you, when this happens, that you acknowledge that pain, because it's real. You can't tell yourself, "I'm not hurting," because that's not the truth. The truth is you are hurting. What you have to do is realize the power of your mind. You have more potential than any other human being that has ever lived before you. Think about that. The only thing that limits you is your mind. You're only limited by how you think. You can actually meditate to such a degree that you're no longer here, that there's nothingness, nothing. And there is no pain then, because it's no longer you. You're at one with the whole universe and beyond. And when that happens, you can't feel anything. Don't give up on yourselves. Don't ever doubt your inner power. I don't know how you have talked to yourselves all your lives, but start talking to yourselves different from today. Start reminding yourselves how powerful you are. When I say powerful, I don't mean that in a bad sense. I mean that in the best sense of the word. Because all of you, each of you, has the opportunity when you leave here to make a huge difference in the world. Because you are so powerful. And remember, when you touch only one life, that person touches someone else's life and someone else's life. And that ripple effect goes out. And it never ends. It keeps going and going and going. And with meditation, it's like quantum physics. It travels at the speed of light. You all came here seeking something. You came to the right place because this is where you find it. You probably came seeking yourselves, trying to find out who you are. Constantly remind yourselves that you are very powerful because you have a mind and you know where to place that mind, and you know that this place 2 finger widths above your navel is the most powerful place that your mind can be. And when it is there, fantastic things can happen in your life. In 1998, I had to have a defibrillator implanted in my chest. It was a pacemaker and a defibrillator in one, so that if my heart stopped, it would shock me back to life again. It never had to do that, but my heart got bigger and bigger and weaker and weaker. And 4 years ago, I was dying again. And the doctors said I had end-stage cardiac failure. End stage meaning you are dying. It's the end. However, a doctor who you will see soon had been approached by the Discovery Channel, and he is a world-renowned heart transplant surgeon in the US, Dr. Mehmet Oz, O-Z, like the Wizard of Oz. And he was a very young man, and he heard in the hospital, the Discovery Channel said to him, "Do you have a special heart transplant patient? Someone who does something different?" And he said, "I don't think so." But he was talking to my cardiologist, who's a Korean woman. And she said, "Oh, I have a patient who uses the power of the mind to overcome a lot of the physical challenges that he's had. And he teaches meditation in this hospital to the staff." That doctor then came and he found me and he asked me, "If we get a heart for you, would you like to be filmed with me on the Discovery Channel and show how meditation has given you some power to help you get well?" And I said, "Absolutely."
We have now come to the end of our program. Your questions and comments can be sent to meditationforall@yahoo.com. Goodbye for now. สวัสดีค่ะ